A new area that CPA candidates should be aware of is called assurance services. Assurance services is defined as the AICPA formed a special committee called the Special Committee on Assurance Services to help expand the type of services that public accounting firms can provide. The committee's task was to develop services that included not only financial information, but also information that includes a broad variety of non-financial information. This committee, sometimes called the Elliott Committee, after its chair, Mr. Robert Elliott, developed the following new assurance services: business risk assessment, business performance measurement, information systems reliability, electronic commerce, health performance, and elder care. The above assurance services require independence. In other words, a CPA cannot perform assurance services unless they are independent of the client. The most talked about new assurance service is that of elder care. It is a broad service opportunity for CPAs to allow them to provide support to the elderly and their families, with particular emphasis on helping older people who can no longer completely care for themselves remain independent and live on their own. CPAs provide elder care services such as assisting the elderly to obtain medical and nursing home care, financial and investment help, and home maintenance and remodeling. Today, there are no assurance service standards such as the 10 GAAS or the 11 attestation standards. Let's compare an audit, an attestation engagement, and assurance services. The objective. The objective test engagement is to issue a written communication about criteria. The objective of an assurance service engagement is to provide information for better decision-making. The written forms of report are required for audit and attest engagements. Assurance services simply require, quote, some form of communication, unquote. Therefore, a written report is not required when providing assurance services. Independence is required for all three engagement types. Yes, the CPA must be independent to perform assurance services. Who prepares the information for the CPA? For an audit, the information is prepared by the client. It's the financial statements. For an attest engagement, the information is also prepared by the client, and the CPA evaluates such information against certain established criteria. Assurance engagements are slightly different. Here, the information may be prepared by the CPA, the client, or some other third-party user of the information. Here's a question for you. Is an audit an assurance service? Yes. Are attest engagements assurance services? Yes. Both audits and attest engagements provide better information for decision makers. However, CPAs must follow the attest standards for attestation engagements and the 10 GAAS for audits. Let's take some time to quiz you on what you've learned in my. You should respond with the relevant key words. What does audibility refer to? Audibility refers to the auditor's ability to audit. 3 factors must be in place for a CPA to audit an entity. 1. Adequate accounting records. 2. The CPA must be allowed to understand the internal control process. And 3, the CPA must believe management maintains integrity. What is the auditor's responsibility for illegal acts? The auditor should assess the risk that illegal acts could cause the financial statements to be materially misstated, and design the audit to obtain reasonable assurance of detecting those illegal acts that have a direct and material effect on the financial statements. Note, the auditor provides no assurance of detecting indirect effect illegal acts. What is the auditor's responsibility for fraud? The auditor must assess the risk that fraud could cause the financial statements to be materially misstated and design the audit to provide reasonable assurance of detecting such fraud. The auditor does not search for fraud. During planning, the auditor uses the fraud risk factors to help determine if there is a possibility that fraud could exist. If a fraud risk factor is present at a client, that does not necessarily mean that there is fraud. For example, a high turnover of senior management What two conditions must be met to perform an attest engagement? The two conditions that must be met to perform attestation engagements are: 1. The assertion must be capable of evaluation against a reasonable criteria. And 2. The assertion must be capable of reasonably consistent estimation or measurement using such criteria. Provide 3 examples of an assurance service. There are more than 3, but the most widely advertised that come to mind are elder care, business performance measurements, and business risk assessment. Is an engagement letter required by GAAS? No, an engagement letter is not required by GAAS. What is required by GAAS is that an auditor obtain an understanding of the services to be performed with the client. This understanding includes a discussion of the engagement objectives, management's responsibilities, the auditor's responsibilities, and the limitations of performing the service. Must the CPA understand internal control for all attest engagements? No. In fact, since understanding the client's internal controls is only applicable to some attest engagements, understanding the internal control is not an attest standard. What set of standards? The quality control standards that contain 5 components. 1. Independence, integrity, and objectivity. 2. Personnel management. 3. Acceptance and continuance of clients. 4. Engagement performance. And 5. Monitoring. What are the 4 questions the successor auditor should ask the predecessor auditor? 1. Do you know the reasons for the auditor change? 2. Do you have any reason to doubt management integrity? 3. Did you have any disagreements over accounting or auditing issues? And 4. Did you have any discussions with the audit committee about internal control, illegal acts, or fraud? What is meant by the 10 generally accepted auditing standards? The 10 generally accepted auditing standards measure the quality of the auditor's performance.